Have you ever really thought about the color of something simple like a tomato? I mean, it's red. Easy, right? But what if I told you that the idea of red is one of the most complex, personal, and frankly, mind-bending concepts we deal with every single day? Okay, let's get into this because the color you see, well, it might not be as real as you think.
And this is the question that kicks the whole thing off, isn't it? It sounds like something you debate late at night, but honestly, it's a huge puzzle. It touches on our biology, our psychology, the words we use, and even the very nature of reality. So let's see if we can piece together an answer.
So before we get into all the really wild variations, we have to start somewhere. We need a baseline. And for most of us, our experience of color seems pretty solid, right? We all agree a stop sign is red and the sky is blue. That shared experience is built on a common biological foundation. And here it is. This is the standard hardware for the human eye. It's called trichromacy. Most of us have these three types of color-detecting cells, called cones, in our eyes. They're basically tuned to catch long, medium, and short wavelengths of light, which our brains then translate as red, green, and blue. Literally, every color you've ever seen is just your brain mixing signals from these three little guys. Okay, but here's where that whole shared reality thing starts to get a little shaky. Because even if we all have the same basic hardware, the fine-tuning can be incredibly different from one person to the next. Turns out, our internal color recipe isn't universal at all. And we're not talking tiny differences either. Research shows that the ratio of your red to green cones can vary a lot, especially across different ethnic groups. Caucasians, for example, have almost 2 red-sensitive cones for every 1 green-sensitive cone, on average. But for most other groups, that ratio is much closer to 1 to 1. So right from the get-go, our eyes are literally sending different information to our brains about the world. All right, so our standard equipment varies, but what happens when someone has extra equipment? We're about to move from these subtle differences in perception to something that sounds like a genuine superpower. 9 million. Just let that number sink in. That's a low-end estimate of how many more colors some people might be able to see than the average person. We're not just talking about seeing shades a little better. This is like upgrading your vision from HD to a resolution that doesn't even exist yet. So how is this possible? It's a condition called tetrachromacy. It's a genetic mutation on the X chromosome, which is why it almost always shows up in women. They have a 4th type of cone cell, usually sitting somewhere between red and green on the spectrum, and it just unlocks this whole new dimension of color. Up to 12% of women might even carry the gene for it, though not all of them get the full-blown superhuman vision. This quote from Concetta Antico, an artist who is a confirmed tetrachromat, it gives you a tiny peek into her world. For years, she would point out these incredible, shimmering colors to her art students, and they just kind of nod along. It was only later that she realized those brilliant pinks and reds she was seeing, they were completely invisible to everyone else. Okay, get ready, because we're about to take another huge step away from what we think of as normal perception. What if color wasn't just something you saw with your eyes? What if you could also hear it, or maybe even feel it? Let's talk about what happens when the brain's wiring gets wonderfully crossed. This is a real phenomenon called synesthesia. For people who have it, one kind of stimulation, say a sound or a number, automatically triggers an experience in a totally different sense, like seeing a color. And it's not a metaphor. They aren't just imagining it. It's a real involuntary sensory experience. It's like their brain's wiring just has these amazing extra connections. And it comes in so many fascinating forms. For some people, the letter A is always a specific shade of red. For others, the sound of a cello might create a burst of deep purple. Some synesthetes see days of the week as having their own colors, or can even perceive people's personalities as distinct colors, giving a literal meaning to having a colorful personality. And, this isn't some new thing people just figured out. It's probably been influencing art for centuries. The artist Carol Steen literally paints the colors and shapes she sees when she gets acupuncture. And there's a good chance that Vincent van Gogh was a synesthete. His piano teacher actually thought he was nuts for insisting that certain musical notes were yellow and others were blue. So far, we've pretty much been talking about the brain's hardware. But what about the software, the operating system? Could the very words you know actually change the colors you see? Let's dig into how language itself can shape our vision. This is the idea behind the linguistic relativity hypothesis. The core concept is that language isn't just a set of labels we stick onto the world. Instead, it's more like a filter or a pair of glasses we wear. The world is this messy, chaotic flow of information, and our language helps us chop it up and organize it. But what if two people are wearing different glasses? Do they see the same world?
Now, to be super clear, the physics of light doesn't change. A light wave has certain properties, and that's constant for everyone on the planet. But where we decide to draw the lines between colors, how we carve up that whole rainbow into neat little boxes with names, that is hugely influenced by the language we speak. And here is a perfect example. In English, we have one basic word for blue. Sure, we can say light blue or dark blue, but it all falls under the big umbrella of blue. In Turkish, though, there are two completely separate, fundamental words, mavi for lighter blues and lasivert for darker blues. And studies have shown this isn't just a vocabulary quirk. It can actually make Turkish speakers faster at telling the difference between two shades if one is mavi and the other is lasivert.
Okay, buckle up. We've explored biology, we've explored language, but now we're arriving at the deepest, most mind-bending question of all. This final part isn't really about science. It's a famous philosophical puzzle that gets right to the heart of the difference between knowing about something and truly experiencing it.
The thought experiment is called Mary's Room. It's designed to isolate one specific question, and it's a big one. Is there more to reality than just physical facts?
So just picture this. You have Mary, a brilliant scientist. She has spent her entire life in a black and white room. But in that room, she has learned everything there is to know about color. She knows the exact wavelength of red light. She knows how it hits the cones in your eye, how the signals fire up to your brain. She knows every single physical fact. She has complete objective knowledge. But she's never actually seen color. Then, one day, she walks out.
And here it is, the million-dollar question. When Mary sees that red tomato for the first time, does she learn anything new? I mean, think about it. She already knew all the physical facts. So is there anything left to learn? And this is the truly profound part. If your gut tells you, yes, of course she learned something new. If you think she learned what the experience of red is actually like, what philosophers call qualia, then that suggests our purely physical description of the world is incomplete. It means that conscious experience itself might be a real fundamental part of our reality, something that can't just be boiled down to neurons and light waves.
So, we have to ask ourselves, if something as basic and fundamental as color is this deeply personal, shaped by our unique biology, our language, and our own private experiences, what else is out there? What other parts of the world we think we share are actually just a kaleidoscope of different realities, each one seen through a different pair of eyes?